الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد. Continuing our lessons on the history of the compilation of the Hadith and its authenticity. Last week we spoke about the Isnad or the Asanid in general, the system of chains and transmissions and how they work in general. And we also spoke about how many ahadith there are, how many asanid there are, weak and strong. We also spoke about how the chains and transmission is one of the most important part of Islamic knowledge, that we have isnad. But today we have to talk about how the isnad works, because without this knowledge, we will not be able to understand why there is some criticism from outside sources, and even some Muslims, sadly, in relation to hadith and hadith's literature. So today, inshallah, we're going to talk about how authenticity or authentication of hadith works at a basic level, and then the methodology of hadith criticism, the manhaj of jarh wa ta'deel or the muhaddithin, and how they establish something's authentic and something's weak. So the second part of the lesson is the most important part. But to begin, last week we said that there are 5 conditions for hadith to be sahih. Number 1, we have to have a connected isnad, ittisal sanad. So it has to be connected from beginning till end. Whoever narrated in the book, all the way to whoever it ends at, be it Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the Sahabi or Tabi'i, whatever it is. So ittisal sanad, it has to be connected. Number 2, al-adala, the narrator has to be upright religiously and trustworthiness, like they're not going to be lying, they're not going to be distorting texts on purpose or by accident, or more importantly that their religion is upright, and we'll see what adala looks like. Number 3, they have to be precise and accurate in their narrations, dabtul rawi or ruwat, that the rawi, the narrator, has to have dabt means accurate in what he narrates, either from the chest, hifz, or the kitab. So we say dabtul kutub, so the books that he has with him, if his memory is not good, he has to rely on that. And more importantly, dabt to sadr, in his chest, when he memorizes something, he gives it as he memorized it. And number 4, it has to not be irregular. It has to be free of irregularities or inconsistencies, adam al-shudhuz, which means the chain of transmission, if it comes in one and another one, you compare. You compare them. Let's say one has an additional wording, the other one doesn't. We have to figure out who added this additional wording. Or one of the narrations marfu', it goes up to Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, another one's mawquf, it's taught to Sahabi. Why? So when you check the transitions and chains, you see who added what. And we'll see in a second how that looks. And the last one, which is the most difficult one, adam al-illah, no hidden defects. So if the first 4 conditions are met, usually a hadith is sahih. But the 5th one is one of the most difficult subjects of all hadith sciences, ilm al-ilal, the knowledge of hidden defects, and is left to the experts who verify and they check through different methodologies. And of course the ulama before us who are experts, they would know a hadith is weak or strong even just by hearing it, and sometimes by knowing the who narrated from who, etc. But of course it's not only open for the scholars before us. We till today can do this. So if these 5 conditions are met, a hadith is sahih. If there is a lowering in condition 3 and 4, it exists but at a lower degree, the hadith is hasan. As we'll see, hadith hasan. So hadith sciences, for a hadith to be acceptable, it has to be hasan or sahih. Whether that be hasan, which is fair in and of itself, hasan li dhatihi or hasan li ghayrihi. And we'll see what that means. Or sahih li ghayrihi, authentic due to other chains, or sahih li dhatihi. As for everything below hasan, is for whole da'if. It's da'if because one of the 5 conditions are not met, and then the degrees are very depend on the level of weakness. With that being said, the ulama, they differ on the authenticity of a hadith in relation to differences that they may have come across when they try to authenticate the hadith. So what are the most common reasons for differences in authentication? Because people often get confused when the first doubts of the people who are questioning a hadith literature, why then the hadith is da'if and sahih? Quran is all sahih, how come the hadith is sahih? Or some are da'if and some are sahih. So how do we answer it? First we say there's a group of hadith which are muttafaq. The whole ummah agreed upon the authenticity. So that doubt goes out the window. It's like saying, are there some qira'at which are not considered mutawatir? Or some qira'at shadh? Yes. Tayyib, the hadith, same thing. But those people who ask this, they don't even know that. So the first confusion they have, how could they be Bukhari authentic, Muslim authentic, Abu Dawood? We got to check. So that means everything's gone. We tell them, no, it doesn't work this way. So the first, there are some hadith, everybody in the Ummah agreed. Bukhari and Muslim, for example, the whole Ummah agreed on their authenticity. That's it. So for example now, if you tell me it's a hadith that someone differed over, no problem. Because, as we'll see, there's reasons. What are those reasons? Some of the ulama, they try to collect all the possible reasons or most common reasons for differences amongst the scholars for the authenticity and weakness of a hadith. And this is the category in which there is ijtihad. There is scholarly effort being made. First reason, scholars, they differed. If the hadith has a ilal, a hidden defect, is this defect qadiha or ghayr qadiha? Means, is it a defect which removes authenticity or not? So give you an example. Imagine there's a narration. Some scholars say Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said it. Another group of ulama say, no, the Sahabi said it. What's the debate here? Does the hadith go up to Rasulullah or not? So some of the ulama say, okay, this difference doesn't change the ruling of the hadith. Because if a hadith is mawquf, it goes to the Sahabi, it could still be hukm marfu'. It can go up to Rasulullah by way of the fact that he learned from him. But some ulama say, no, if the hadith stops to the Sahabi, it's not marfu', فهو ضعيف. Because munqati' is a type of decrease. So some of the scholars, they differ. Is that actually a illah which is qadiha? Does it remove the authenticity or doesn't? So some scholars, when you hear them say the hadith is mawquf, what are they really telling you? فهو ضعيف. Right? An example we covered in fiqh class. Some of the hadith of Rasulullah, like you look at, they are mawquf. So some of the scholars, when they looked at this, they say, okay, since the hadith is mawquf, Sahabi said it, you can't build a hadith, a ruling on it. The other group of scholars say, yes, it is up to the Sahabi, but still you can use it as a proof. That's an example where they differed about the hidden defects. Another example, some of the scholars, they say that the hadith itself is considered irregular. Yani there's too much, there's differences in the matan, the text, or the chain of transmission. Sometimes the narrator has additional narrator, sometimes the narrator doesn't mention additional narrator. So the first reason they differed is to do with the science of hadith itself. If I find a hidden defect, should I cancel the hadith or should I keep the hadith and argue that it's still authentic? That's the first reason. Second reason, they differed in the actual principles of the hadith science. And this is when you study the ulum al-hadith, you will learn what that looks like. Example, scholars, they differed on what is the definition of shadh, hadith which is irregular or it's opposing another hadith. They differed. So they differed on the definition, hence they differ on the ruling. Go to any book of hadith and see the difference between shadh with ziyad with thiqah. You're going to see a big difference amongst the scholars. So whoever interpreted this category to mean one thing, he ruled hadith a certain way. Whoever defined a different way, he ruled a different way. So me and you, we're not, let's say, in hadith sciences. I wouldn't know this. But if I see, for example, Shaykh Al-Albani says hadith sahih, another scholar says hadith da'if. You go and you check the books, he says the ziyad thiqah. He says fahuwa shadh. Now you see what's going on. They are differing on one category of hadith, the ulama are allowed to be different on, in terms of defining it and applying it. So if you understand this, when you study hadith more, you better appreciate where the differences lie, but also you don't get nervous because you know these are permissible differences of opinion. They're not something the scholars are just arbitrarily ruling. And a good example would be when you go in salah, many of us we know, when you sit in tashahhud, do you point your finger or do you move it? What's the difference of opinion here? Shaykh Al-Albani says the hadith is ziyada thiqah. Alamat Wadi'i says huwa shadh. You go and check yourself, and you see whoever weakened it, he's on the ziyada thiqah, he's on the shadh side. Whoever says authentic, he's with ziyada thiqah side. If you look at the definitions, that's where they differ. The real difference is going on in definitions. But the benefit behind all of this is that the scholars don't really differ too much on the definitions, but more of the application of the definition. And this is why whoever knows hadith sciences will appreciate that one. But if you didn't know, then at least you understand that there are some internal small differences in the subject matter itself. And the third one, which is the differences in the ruling of an actual narrator. Is the narrator reliable or is he not? That's probably one of the most common ones. Ijtihad, trying to figure out the hukum or the hal of a rawi. Is this narrator authentic or is he weak or is he not? So there are differences, there are rules to this. So 3 major reasons. And once you look at these 3 reasons, if you check the hadith, as we'll look at today an example, you can actually go and do your own homework and figure out most common discussions among scholars. It revolves around one of these three. And these three were mentioned by, again, some of the ulama like Diya al-Rahman al-A'zami. He mentioned these are some of the examples. طيب, to better appreciate how hadith is checked, and then checking to figure out how they did this, because our lesson today is figuring out the practical mechanism, tasheeh and tad'if. How do you do it, step by step? And number two, what's the manhaj behind this? How do we know the ulama what they're doing actually is authentic? Because in the end of this series, I want to raise some of the doubts of the Orientalists. We can't appreciate or even criticize their doubts if we don't know how we do the hadith ourselves. So for example, the Orientalists may come and say that something like the ulama don't care about checking the authenticity of a matan, a text. They only spend their time on the asanid. So anyone who studies hadith knows it's a lie. But if someone asks you, prove it. You have to say, okay, let me show you how hadith science works. So Orientalists, they claim, our ulama never checked a hadith for its authenticity by way of the matan, the text. They just look at the chain. If it's all authentic narratives, sahih. And this is a lie. They never did that, right? They used to check both. The reason why they make this claim is to make it easier to look like the ulama were just checking hadith based on isnad, therefore fabricating asanid, and then putting any text along with it. And we'll see quickly that's a lie. So let's do a practical example. Of course, it's not a hadith science class, but I think it's necessary that at least the basics we would know. And those who studied with Brother Majid Bayquniya, they actually were familiar with some of the terminology. But we'll just go step by step, even if someone didn't read any book of hadith. Let's look at a hadith in Sunan Abi Dawud. We're going to examine this hadith. So if you can check yourself if you want to see the hadith. The hadith is hadith number 4,888. So if you can pull that up if you want in sunnah.com or whatever. Sahih Sunan Abi Dawud or Sunan Abi Dawud, hadith 4888. So the chain of transmission, the method, we're going to look through it. So it says here, Imam Abu Dawud rahimahullah says, قال أبو داود رحمه الله حدثنا عيسى ابن محمد الرملي وابن عوف وهذا لفظه قال أخبرنا الفريابي عن سفيان عن ثور عن راشد بن سعد المعاوية رضي الله تعالى عنه قال سمعت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقول إنك إن اتبعت عورات الناس أفسدتهم أو كدت أن تفسدهم. Okay, so the hadith is Abu Dawood with his chain and transmission until Muawiyah radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, verily if you were to follow after the mistakes and the blemishes and defects of the people, you will corrupt them or almost corrupt them, which is a prohibition of trying to spy on people and trying to get their mistakes. This hadith, we're going to see it's authentic or not. And we're going to see how the ulama used to do this. Hadith number 4888. So the first thing we have to know, we have the isnad, we have the matan. So in order for us to first see the hadith authentic, we have to go through the steps, each one, the conditions that we mentioned. So first step, we have to check if the chain is connected or not. Ittisal or sanad. Right? That's the first condition. So how do you do that? The ulama say the easiest way to do that, and the simple way, because without getting too complicated, the simple way, you just look at the wordings, the siyagh, the way the ulama have narrated the hadith or this chain has come. So there's two ways of narrating hadith. You can use terminologies like haddathana, wa akhbarana, wa sami'tu, anba'ana, these words. Or you can use the word an, or qala. So scholars say when you look at a hadith, check to see if the wordings indicate that they heard from the person. Wordings like haddathana, or sami'tu, or qara'tu alayhi, all indicate that this person heard directly from the shaykh. So that means the chain is absolutely connected. So imagine someone told you something, you said, Sami'tu, I heard him. It's not ihtimal, you heard the person. Or you say, akhbarana, or haddathana, he told us. So anytime you find that in a chain of transmission, what are you going to say? The sanad is connected. For these wordings indicate direct communication. As for the wordings like an, or an, or qala, they don't necessarily indicate that the person heard directly. It's possible you heard from somebody else. Because it's like saying, so-and-so said, I didn't say I heard. Or it was told to us. Or it was narrated. You didn't say you heard it. So the ulama say the rule is, if the wording is an or qala, you have to now go into the books to see if this narrator is known to switch up narrators or not. What does this mean? For example, some narrators are known for doing what's called a tadlis. They would narrate hadith they never heard directly. They would skip somebody. So the narrator is weak or not the best. He will just skip to the stronger one on purpose or by accident sometimes, and sometimes usually on purpose. Or he will do it out of a habit. But usually people who do it often, who are known for being weak, they do it to hide the weak narrator. And some of them will do it out of habit, although they heard from another one. So scholars say if you see a wording of a hadith with the word an or qala, go to the books of the sciences of ilm rujal, the people and the narrators, and see if the person has been described as being a mudallis, yani someone who does this practice of hiding narrators. Also, check to see if this chain and transmission has come in a different way. So the benefit we take from this level, if we go to our chain, all majority of it is حدثنا وأخبرنا, and there is some an and some an. So what do we take from this? In the beginning of the chain, it's all connected. Everything below it, which is an, all the narrators are not known to be people who hide narrators. And how do we know? Well, I went to the books of hadith, the easiest one being Taqrib, right? Taqrib al-Tahdhib, as we'll mention in a second. It's the easiest book you can go to, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani. And you just check the biographer, the narrator, his name and his ruling and his level. So the benefit we take from this, the ulama do this for every chain. Of course, some of them they know from the top of their head when they hear a narrator, so this guy is not clear. We have to find another chain. So the benefit we take, you can actually go through it one by one. That's what you're supposed to do. So in our case, حدثنا عيسى ibn Muhammad, no problem. Ibn Auf, no problem. أخبرنا, no problem. عن سفيان al-Thawri, he doesn't do this. Thawr ibn Zayd, he doesn't do that. Rashid ibn Sa'id, he's not known to hide narrators. Muawiyah, he's Sahabi. So the scholars say this chain is connected. And there's no other chain and transmission, if you look for it, which has different kind of narratives in there. The reason why this is important, the ulama start here. Because if the chain is broken, immediately it's weak. Why am I mentioning this point in the beginning? Imagine today the ulama of hadith were making up hadith. They would get caught in the first part. Just let me hear the hadith. Oh, it's da'if. Because you're going to have a narrator who's known to do tadlis and you didn't clear it. Or you're going to tell me a chain and the chain clearly shows breakage. So the ulama, they don't do that. And this is one of the reasons why the Orientalists, their claim was based on limited knowledge. They never actually checked or brought proof for the whole hadith corpus. That the ulama were doing random things like making up an isnad and just hoping it's sahih. Imagine, arbitrary, just making a isnad and saying, Bismillah, this is my isnad. The first problem we're going to have is how do you even know that isnad is authentic and connected? So the ulama had to make sure that they're meeting each other. Some may ask the question, how about if the person didn't meet him? Well, possibility of meeting can also count, and that's a higher discussion. Now, once we establish the chain and transmissions connected, based on the wording that's used, the next level we have to do then, we have to check for the person, the narrators, whether they're trustworthy, or both trustworthy and upright. We're looking for adala wa dabt. And what does this mean? We have to make sure each person in the chain, his religion is good, doesn't lie, he practices sunnah, he's not known for deviant belief or things like that, and he's also trustworthy in his narration. So how do you do that? This will require us to go to the books of ilm rijal, the books where the narratives have been narrated to us, or their biographies and their gradings. We have them with us. Just as the Quran is preserved, hadith is preserved, and the books of rijal are preserved. This is the beauty of Islam. Everything. Not like the Jews and the Christians. Mark, Luth, John, all made up. No one knows who that person is. No one knows last name, because they never used to give last names at that time. They don't know what country he's from, what time he died. Only person is well known as Paul, and he's a liar. Right? That's the best they got. And what's crazy about this is that in Muslims, when we tell them we have changed the transmission, they can't believe it. So where do you guys get the information from? What do you think? The ulama were not writing it? They had to. Because once they get a hadith, they don't accept the hadith from the person immediately. They have to go and say, who did he narrate it from? I got to go find him out. If it's a contemporary, I go visit him. If he's an earlier scholar, let me ask his friend and his contemporary. So the benefit we take from this is that the books of ilm rijal are very important, and we'll see later on, even Orientalists agree that they're actually an accurate source of information. They're actually an accurate source. What's the easiest book to use for ilm rijal? The ulama advise Taqrib al-Tahdhib of Hafid ibn Hajar. Because Ibn Hajar has more than one book. But he has this simple one, which he summarized everything he did. So he has a tahdhib, then he has taqreeb. This is a biographical or like alphabetical order of narrators from Alif all the way down. And what he does, he just brings the narrator. He categorized the narrators in terms of what he believed is the most correct ruling about them. I mean, it's a very serious work. He took all what came before him, he aggregated it in his best judgment and gave him a ruling. And he made it into 12 categories. So this is hard work, right? Because the ulama will see, they actually value the book. Taqreeb is a beginner book, but there's no beginner book. Because when the ulama get stuck, they go back to Taqreeb. You know, some people today say, this is the Masakeen, they go back to Taqreeb. What do you mean? Sheikh Al-Albani and Muqbil will go back to Taqreeb too when they get stuck. As if these people who are criticizing our ulama, as if they didn't, you don't know other books. But when you get stuck, Ibn Hajar is more knowledgeable than us. And I'll show you in a second why we need these kinds of books. But what did Ibn Hajar do? He took every narrator that exists, he puts in 12 categories. From Sahabi level to someone who's a liar. And he puts these levels and he puts their gradings. So it becomes almost like easy to follow. So an example would be grades 1 to 3. If a narrator is in group 1 to 3, the hadith is sahih. Narrative becomes, it's very important information. 1 to 3, if you find a rawi level 1 to 3, the hadith becomes sahih or sahih li ghayri, depending on if you have other chains, but sahih at least. So levels 1 to 3, the narrator can qualify as sahih. Level 4, Hassan li dhatihi. Level 5 to 6, Hassan li ghayrihi, if they're supporting chains. 5 to 6. If a narrator is found in group 5 and 6, we're going to use him to make a hadith Hassan li ghayri. If we have another hadith with someone like him there, in the same level. Groups 6 to 12 are weak. Narrators found in groups 6 to 12 are weak narrators of varying levels. So the last level is somebody who's just like a fabricator, just makes up things. But then Ibn Hajar also says, whoever is in group 6 to 8, you can also use him as a narrator to help establish the authentic hadith if there's multiple chains of the same level. So essentially, when you want to authenticate hadith, we need levels 1 to 3 and 4. These are the best. If it goes below that, then there's now efforts being made to judge. So the cool thing about this book is that if someone opens it, knows the level, trusts Ibn Hajar's grading, he just follows it and he'll get the hadith ruling. Now obviously scholars don't rely upon this book only because it's a summarized book. You have to go to the big books to see, because Ibn Hajar, he makes mistakes sometimes. Rahimahullah, some ulama have made corrections and additions to it. But the benefit though is that the book is a beginner book. So now we're going to use this book to see if we can do the same thing. Some of the scholars have also categorized narrators in their own way as well, using similar categorizations. So what's cool about this, you can go and see Sheikh Al-Albani rahimahullah, Sheikh Muqbil, others, Sheikh Abbad, Sheikh Ethiopi, you can see how did they check hadith based on these kinds of informations. So let's say, for example, Imam al-Wadi'i and Sheikh Al-Albani differ on the hadith. They may be differing on the narrator, on the illah of the hadith. So now you can see that student and teacher, they don't go against each other except for some reason. But the scholars also say that if somebody differed with you on authenticity of hadith, as long as he's within the bounds of these science, he's allowed to. Let's look at now our text. If we go back to Taqreeb, we see every narrator in this chain is thiqah or higher. They're all category 1. Right, 1, 2, or 3. Most of them are 1 and some are 2. There's nobody in category 4. So immediately the hadith will become, the narrators will be, right? They have adala, adil, he's dabit, he has dabit, he's someone who's firm and his memory. So we're going to say the hadith is already sahih so far. And someone will say, how do we know? Okay, Sufyan al-Thawri, what are you going to say besides that? We can't say anything else. Al-Firyabi, his biggest student. Right? So each one we have to do it. But obviously some of the names are well known to us. But if a hadith has lower grading, obviously you have to do more checking. So alhamdulillah, we passed that. And if we want to know how they get to that level, I'm going to talk about that later. Now that we know that narrators are reliable and are trustworthy, we have to do step number 3, right? Or 4, if you want to be honest, step number 4. Because 2 and 3 are put together. So scholars, when they give you a narrator and they tell you his ruling, they give you adala wa dabt at the same time. So for example, they say so-and-so is thiqah. Thiqah means upright in religion, good memorizer at the same time. Right, that's what it really is written. Or for someone who's thiqah hafidh, means like khalas, he's up there. Or sahabi, or something like this. So now, the second thing we have to do, the 4th step, we have to check if there's any irregularities in the hadith. Any shudud means we need to gather all the chains of transmission available for this hadith, Hadith Abu Dawud 4888, and see if any other chains of transmission have come and there's discrepancies between them. So how do you do that? You collect all the asanid, you analyze them. Some scholars, they make charts, and they see each narrator and each chain. So in our hadith, it's reported in Abu Dawood, wa Ibn Hibban, wal Bayhaqi fi Kubra, all of them same chain transmission. كلهم عن طريق محمد يوسف الفريابي. All of them same chain. And Sufyan and Thawr and Rashid and Sa'ad Muawiyah, same chain. So the benefit we take, every narrator, every book has the same chain. The reason why this is important is because if there was difference in the chain, we have to check. Okay, so let's say there's a difference between this. Abu Dawood's chain has Muhammad Yusuf Riyabi. Let's say another book has a different name. We're going to check their matan and their texts. If Abu Dawood's is different than Bayhaqi's, we've got to figure out who's right here. You see, this we're going to focus on today a lot because the ulama, they do this. They can't just take a hadith by itself. So the fourth step is the one of the most complicated ones because without it, you can never say hadith sahih. All you could say is isnadu sahih. So now you understand when the ulama say isnadu sahih doesn't mean hadith sahih. Why? Because isnadu sahih is steps 1 to 3. I need 4 and 5. You're not done yet. So some ulama, when they do tahqiq, they say isnadu sahih. That doesn't mean sahih hadith yet. If it's an athar, it's easier. If it's athar and narrations are easier because narrations don't have a lot of asanid. So if it's athar and sahih, isnad is okay. But a hadith, if it says isnadu sahih, I'm not done yet. I have to go get the rest. So that's why this famous golden principle of Jam' turuq, gathering all the narrators. Today we can use computers to do it. Well, it's obviously a little bit lazy, but it helps, right? But the ulama, some of them, they don't like it. They say it's not good. You have to go to the books and get each one. And this is what Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah used to do amongst other scholars, gathering all the asanid. And what is he doing? He's cross-referencing, he's checking, he's strengthening some hadith, bringing some hadith down, some he's declaring defective. The more chains you have, the better. Why? Because the more you can see. And what's interesting, as we'll see later, some scholars, they did this for every single hadith and narrator. Can you imagine that? Imagine a scholar, every hadith he does this. He checks it, he cross-references against another narrator. He cross-references this method against that method. So Imam ad-Daraqutni, for example, when he says something's ma'lul, he knows what he's talking about. Every single hadith he did that. So that's what some ulama said, like his book is the best book when it comes to hidden defects. But why is he? Because he does this. And brothers and sisters, do we understand this? He doesn't have papers only. From his memory, from his experience with travel, someone at this level from the latter generation, forget about Yahya Ma'in and Ali Medini and Ahmed. These people, they know so much hadith, they could just hear it and know it's weak. Just like when we have fake money, just touch it. It's not good. And me and you, sometimes we get shocked. How did they do this? Because we'll see there's a reason how they did this. But the benefit we take, it is possible to follow up some of the chains, if not most of them, to find out if it's actually irregular or not. It's easy for us to do. The last step, number 5, is the hard one, the illah. The illah is the hard one because this one is not even apparent by the chain. It's not apparent. So the chain right now looks for good, but then some scholars will say, nope, something's missing. And we'll say, where? I can't see it. He would know because he knows who met who. He asked the teacher of that person and he said he never heard the hadith. Or he literally went through all the asanid and through a hard inference, he said, nope, this hadith never came. And why is this interesting to us? Because if the ulama hadith were this focused on the hadith, it's very hard for people to come afterwards and reject their criticism. But there is rules as to when you accept and don't accept. So how would we do it? What we do is we look to the books of ilal, the books of hidden defects, to see if anyone from the earlier scholars have said anything about this hadith. Example, Kitab al-Ilal of Imam ad-Daraqutni. You go there, you put this hadith in, it doesn't come out. It doesn't have the hadith there. Why? Because in his estimation, it's not a hadith, it's defective. And other books like this. So there's resources for every level you can check. Right? I'm just telling you the rules. I'm not telling you where to look because every level there's a place to go. But the bottom line is, when we go in to check, this hadith does not come out. A nice benefit, if a hadith is authentic or meets 4 out of 5 conditions, then usually it's free of illah or ilal. That's a benefit. So if a hadith so far, if you did 4 out of 5 steps, by the time you get the 5th step, most cases, غالبا, the hadith sahih. So the hadith which are defective are less than those which are authentic. And some people will say, but what about the scholars who don't agree with some of the latter scholars doing the hard work of checking and differing? Scholars say if a scholar before us declared a hadith da'if or defective, it doesn't mean the hadith cannot be strengthened by another scholar through the science of hadith. The reason why this is important is because some people think that if the earlier scholars said the hadith is defective, game over, close the books, you can't say anything. But last week I told you, 16,000 hadith. Some of the hadith Shaykh Al-Albani authenticated, someone earlier said it's weak. So how do we answer this? Shaykh Al-Albani, what did he do? He brings another earlier scholar who says sahih. Or he's going to use the same science as the scholar used to say is weak to prove it's not. But let's say a scholar before us said a hadith is weak and I can't prove it's not. What should we do? You have to take the earlier scholars' ruling because they know better. And we'll see later that this is one of the biggest differences between some of the scholars. Some of the scholars are more strict in how they accept and reject a defective hadith. In any case, when I apply all of this to our hadith, what do we get? Our hadith sahih. And who authenticated? Shaykh Al-Albani says sahih in Sahih Sunan Abi Dawud. And Shaykh Muqbil in Sahih Muslim bima laysa fi sahihain, hadith 1106, he says it's also sahih. So those two Imams agreed sahih. Based on our checking very quickly, it's also sahih al-Zahir. That's it. So the reason why this is important, that's the job of Talib Ilm to do, to follow up those ahadith himself. But the benefit we take is that we can do it too, if you study it. Now with all this being said, someone may say, this is beautiful, brother, but I have a bigger question. How do we know the ulama before us actually knew what they did was correct? How did we even know that their grading of a narrative is acceptable? Now we have to go under the roof, right? We got to open the roof and the hood, and see what the ulama are doing. How do they know this person thiqah? What do they do? This, brothers and sisters, is more important for us because we're not in a hadith science class. We're in a hadith literature class or a history class. Somebody wants to know, or Orientalist or atheist will ask you, how do you know? Imam Bukhari, or for example, how do Imam Bukhari know? Rahimahullah, so-and-so narrative is authentic, he never met him. This is a good question. This is the doubt you hear, right? Imam Bukhari came, 256 Hijri, and he's writing the hadith sahih. It doesn't make sense. As if Imam Bukhari sat down under the lights of Medina and just wrote the hadith. What did he do? I want to know. What we want to know. That's what we have to look at today in terms of the manhaj, the methodology of hadith criticism. So before going there, majority of the ahadith, if they become da'if, it's either due to the adala, issues in third condition, or issues in the fourth condition. So something wrong with the adala, the person's uprightness himself, or his dabt, his reliability. And each of the problems you may find in a narrative results in different type of weakness. Give you an example. If somebody's reliability goes downhill, he becomes a liar. A liar weakens the hadith, right? It will also impact the matan, the actual context of the content of the hadith. If a narrator is upright, religious, but he makes too much mistakes, he has a lot of awham, he's always mixing up things. The hadith can be strengthened with other support, but what will happen to the hadith? How would you know this? You will see additional wordings from that narrator only. So sometimes we have one narrator giving extra wordings no one else gives. What does he tell us about that narrator? He's a good man, he's honest maybe, he's religious, but his hifz is not the best. But when you have a narrator who has a problem with adala, the chain is wrong and the matan is probably wrong. Both are out the window. So your aql can help you here. Someone tells you a hadith about something outrageous, goes against the 5 pillars of Islam. We don't need the hadith. It's da'if. You can just check immediately and say, what is this? Who? And you go in the narration, you find a liar. Or a person who's an extreme deviant, or someone who's actually rafili, not just tashayyuh, serious Shi'i who just narrates lies. The benefit behind all of this, the ulama, they actually keep count at this point in order to figure out who caused the difference in a wording of a hadith or its chain and how. Which leads now to the hadith criticism. Brothers and sisters, majority of the ulama, when they talk about hadith criticism, they say that the ulama, they had a manhaj, a methodology, and this methodology is predicated on 2 major principles. Number 1, as we'll see, is at-tansis. Tansis means somebody before us told us something. Tansis means a textual evidence. Someone told me, from an early reliable scholar, that so-and-so narrator is not reliable. This is called textual reporting. So nas, you get a nas. Tansis is someone came and said, for example, I asked my teacher, and he told me that person, he never heard that hadith. He's a liar. That's actual reliable information. Like someone today tells you there's a traffic jam in 401, that's reliable. Inshallah, he's not a liar. You take it. So that means you take it, right? You're not going to say, no, I have to check myself. But we'll see, you can take those reports. But that's not the majority of hadith science. Hadith science majority is based on the practice called as-sabr with sin. As-sabr, it translates to examination, cross-referencing, and comparison of one hadith to another. As-sabr. Sabr wa taqsim, they call it, or ikhtibar, another word you can call it. Ikhtibar, which is examination. As-sabr with the sin, this practice is a practice where a scholar will take anything he hears, and he goes and he does the cross-referencing. The sheikh said this guy's weak. I went to go and check by getting his hadith, getting another reliable hadith scholar, and I did the checking. I used his sahih narrator, thiqah narrator as my control, and I used the weak narrator and I checked. What is this? As-sabr wa ikhtibar. Another way of doing it, like I said, is I asked my teacher. He said this person is a liar. He never heard that hadith. Okay, that person out. But as you'll notice quickly, majority of the hadith sciences could not be only relied upon previous scholars' reports. You need to do, and they did do, the hard work of checking. And the reason why I want to talk about this is that it will also dispel the doubt of the Orientalists who said, ulama were doing what? Just taking previous knowledge blindly. For example, Bukhari heard from his teacher, this person is a liar, he wrote down in Tarikh Kabir, that's it. No, they didn't do that like that. He wrote it down and he went and checked. Because think about it for a second. These scholars, when they heard from their teacher also is a narrator, right? He could be wrong too. He could also get a mistake. So what are they going to do? I've got to double check. Even if he's right. If he's right too. How about, for example, a narrator who you never met before, all you have is narrations. I don't even know if he's reliable because I don't know him. So it's already out the table. You can't check the person's reliability. So what are you going to do? You check his transmission to check his reliability. You use his riwayat, his narration, to check his adala by way of his dabt. This sounds complicated, but it's not really complicated because the ulama, what they were doing is cross-referencing everything. Imam Daraqutni, I give you an example who would do this. But let me give you an introduction how the ulama did it. Ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi, the famous scholar, right, of the book of Jarh wa Ta'dil, Muqaddimah, he writes. And also Mustafa Azami or A'zami, he mentions this narration. He says, Ibn Abi Hatim rahimahullah said, the goodness of a dinar is known when it's measured against another. Thus, if it differs in redness and purity, and the gold, from another one, then the other one is fake. Just like the kind of diamond is examined through measuring with another one. If it differs in sparkle and firmness, it will be known as glass. So the authenticity of a hadith is known by its coming from reliable narrators, and the statement itself must be worthy of being a statement of Prophet Muhammad or prophethood. What is he saying, Ibn Hatim? Ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi in the Muqaddim is telling you what he asked his father and his friends or contemporaries about. They would do this. So when he asked his father about this narrator, he would tell him because he did the same thing. He checked his narrations, or he met his contemporaries and he verified. It wasn't just my father told me he heard from someone so said this guy's good. No, his father went to that village to even check if that person even met so and so. Or he took all his hadith and sat in the house and went through it. And they even did it for contemporaries. They visit a narrator 1 year and they come back to him the second year and ask him again. If he got it wrong, they take out his hadith, say this guy is weak. The same person he heard from, just to make sure that he doesn't change when he hears narrations. This teaches us something powerful about hadith science, is that if it's based on actual cross-referencing, it is possible to check yourself some of the ratings and gradings of ulama they gave to the narrators, but also the hadith science is actually not a theoretical science only, it's appliable science. It's an applied science. And to show you this, let's look over all 5 categories again and see what the methodology for each 5 was. You see, these are found in different books of hadith. They're not found in the regular books of hadith. The regular books of hadith tell you how to check the chain. This is going to tell us how did they check the chain in the first place? How did they even know? Or how did they even get to that information? First one, we said, is connected chain and transmission. The scholars would know someone is the chain is connected in 4 different ways. First, they would check textual evidence. Right? They would actually get some kind of nas from a narrator. So for example, so-and-so asked his teacher who said this hadith is mawsul. It's all connected. That's not as common, but that's an example. Or an expert of a narration will tell you that. Number 2, the scholars use tarikh, the history of narrators. So what they do, they check the age of this guy, he died, in the age just when he died, and they're cross-referenced. Is it possible he be met? You see, it goes with me. Imam Bukhari versus Muslim, and the difference between authenticity is the difference between these two. Right? In terms of some scholars, they allowed possibility of meeting. Some say, no, I need to see the met. Give me the dates. So they actually are books to teach you every narrative, where he died, what time he met. You see, brothers, this shows that our deen is nothing like it, nothing like this. No Christian Jew has anything close. They have no idea what we're doing. So our ulama, when they're doing this, to check what? Just to check the chain, if the chain is met. Forget about this, the rest, just wait. The tariq of narratives. Number 3, the shuyukh al-tulab. I want to know who met who, who student who. If I have a narrator who's majhul to me, I don't know who he is. Let me go check if he's from his teachers or not. I go to the books. I couldn't find him any book that this guy learned from him. No, I don't know about this guy. No, if he's a student of so-and-so or not. So there are books that tell you who's a student of who. Why the ulama were so careful about this. And number 4, as-sabr. They would actually do the cross-referencing. So what do they do? Give me your chain. I'll take another chain. Compare. Your chain has a missing narrator. His chain doesn't. So your chain is broken. So imagine today your teacher told you the narration is authentic. You take it and you go and cross-reference and say, Shaykh, you got it wrong. Actually, it's a broken chain. So how do you know? I cross-referenced it. So even the ulama would do that. When they hear from their teachers, they write it down and they go and just double-check. Because he can make mistakes too. So 4 different ways. Next one, al-adala, trustworthiness. They would establish it through 3 ways. And adala is the hard one, because how do you know someone's upright in their deen? You can't say, so-and-so I heard. You could say that. But what do you want to do? I want to make sure he's actually upright. So Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, we don't say, I saw him in a dream, mashallah, he was in Jannah. Not going to work, that's not going to work. Right? We need to actually have someone who met it, because adala is the first predicate of someone who's a Muslim and trustworthy. It's different between the two. First method, you need contemporaries who mix with him. So someone saw him, someone visited him, someone tested him. So remember, some of us know the story in Bukhari. He saw one narrator he wanted to take hadith from, and he saw that he was deceiving the riding animal, the horse or the camel. He rejected his hadith because he saw this is not adala. This person is trustworthy, let's live it down, because if he's deceiving the animals, he could deceive me. These are some examples, but they wouldn't always do that. But what they do is just ask them a hadith. Or sometimes we'll look at him and see how he prays, how he fasts. Yes, we have to know this person is upright. Next, they will see if the person's widespread reputation. And someone's mashhur, well known to be pious. Everyone says he's upright. Everyone says he's a pious man. He doesn't lie, he never lied. So for example, Imam Ahmed, everyone knows his piety since a young age. No one can doubt him. So if tomorrow someone says Imam Ahmed said something like 100% lie. Why? Because the whole ummah agrees he's trustworthy, and there's some guy who's probably a hater, right, who said something wrong, right? And you notice this, right? Another example, what happened in Bukhari, right? Someone tried to doubt his authenticity, we didn't take it. And number 3, a tansis, someone gave us a nas. And that's the one where you didn't meet him, but your teacher met him, and he says he's good. Adala is the hard one. Why? Because that one, you can't really use a sabr. You can't use cross-referencing. Why? Because I can't cross-reference someone who met him and said he lied, and another guy said he didn't lie. He didn't lie or lied. So why is it important? Majority adala is established through contemporaries meeting. Hence why the ulama used to do a lot of rihla. Go up, let's go visit the person. Why? What are they doing? You always wonder, what are they doing? First thing, let's see from far away, how does he pray the sunnah? Where does he put his hands? Where does he sit down? Yeah, we have to check. This guy is going to hear the hadith of Rasulullah. Next, we go and we check the hadith. So this is how they used to do it. Okay, third one. We want to look for the dabt al-rawi, the accuracy of a narrator. How do we know? This is primarily done through a sabr, the cross-examination. So somebody's upright, but his narration could be up and down. Some days he forgets, he makes mistakes. What do? This one, I gotta take his narration, bring all the chains of transmission. Sabr. A sabr here is very important. And the benefit we take from this, majority of the person, or rawi, is a ruwat. They were verified by way of sabr, not tansis. Sabr, majority, they would check. This is very important because some of the people think, and the Orientals the first, and then the people came after, that the ulama were just following tansis. Someone told me so-and-so. No. We checked his narration and I found him to be weak. I went through the hadith and I know all the asanid he has. And I know every one he narrated and one he didn't. That this teaches us that the scholars were very rigorous. Alamat Muallimi in Kitab al-Tankil, volume 1, page 66, he says majority of hadith was done like this. In fact, most narratives were graded like this. Brothers, this is sharaf our deen. Every narrator, we go through his chains. If there's let's say I told you one chain has 124 narrations. So many chains. We went through all of it to see. So when someone comes to say da'if, he's out of his mind. Yani, what do you know? You're maskeen. You don't even know where you are. And that's the problem though. Some people today, when they talk about deen, they don't even know what they don't know. You ask him, how does it work? He doesn't know. Well, he just listened to Orientalists, some person on YouTube. Wake up. And this is why today, as Ahl Sunnah Jama'ah wa Ahl Hadith, you don't come and tell us hadith da'if, except you're going to bring us proof. That's how it should be, brothers. Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah wa Ahl Hadith. Someone tells you sanad, we're going to check it ourselves. We don't need some hoo-ha, unknown, jahil person, Orientalist today, is going to come and tell us. And that's what we see the ulama when they came to this topic. No one can talk about Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam except the people who are dealing with him the whole life. Especially when we hear Ahl Bid'ah. Especially, brothers. If someone says something about Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah, you don't allow that to pass. No one can talk about Shaykh Al-Albani rahimahullah like that. He's a Mujaddid al-Asr, and like it or don't like it. Enemies even admitted it. And because this discussions happen in the library, me and you're not there, where the enemies are looking helpless when Shaykh is confronting them. So when someone comes to this and say, Shaykh Al-Albani was doing this and that, no, say, come here. What was he doing? Ask him, what was he doing? He look at you like he doesn't know nothing because he's reading those websites. That's how we should be, brothers, because today, a lot of people out there, wallahi, they don't even know anything about hadith. So when we know this a little bit, we can say, wait a minute, if a hadith narrative is weak, I know why he's weak. Because I can go and check his narrations compared to others and figure out there's a discrepancy. I'm not going to just sit there and say, I don't know what Shaykh Al-Albani was doing. And that's not good. I'm not expecting everyone to know, but the Tulab al-Ilm should know. The last two, Adim al-Shudud, is majority done through as-sabr. You have to cross-reference. You can't tell me hadith is irregular or shadh, except you bring every chain. If you're missing a chain, it could be at your detriment. Because you're missing the chain, one chain could have proved something. You didn't have it. You have to do your due diligence. That's why Shaykh Al-Albani is such a powerful scholar, because read the Silsila Hadith Sahihah. Go on Shamila and tell me how many extra hadith you can put in the book he missed. Brothers, Shaykh Al-Albani, he didn't have a computer. He's working manuscripts. Some of the scholars say, if you go on Shamila today, open Silsila Hadith Sahihah, you will not be able to add additional things. In fact, he has more than you have, because you work with manuscripts, you're working with technology. Now, this is the kind of ulama Allah sent to the ummah. And he's the contemporary. Imagine those that came before. Hafiz ibn Hajar, the ulama say he had a library, Allah knows how big it was. It was a waqf in the time of Egypt, at that time, the Mamalik era. He had a library. Shaykh Salih al-Shaykh said, Allahu a'lam how big it was. He sat in there to do Fath al-Bari. We lost most of the resources, but we don't have all of them. Some scholars have compiled the biography of Fath al-Bari. Most of the books, we don't even have them. And he worked in that library. Allahu a'lam how big it was. This is the kind of ulama we're talking about. Now today, like I said, some people who don't appreciate our legacy, but even us, sometimes we may even look down upon. Don't. Think the ulama, they're trying to go through each chain. So when you see the work that goes into it, that's why either you're going to come in the door, or please stand outside and don't talk about the hadith, right? Some people see them, come inside the house first, stand outside, and let's talk about where Shaykh Al-Albani got it wrong. Show me. And I'm saying this because I think online, there's a lot of people who are prying on the ignorance of the lay people. They know, hadith science class, there are not that many, no one knows nothing. Abu Hurairah is not a narrator. There was some ta'ban, saqat guy who came, Abu Rayya his name is. He tried to attack Abu Hurairah. Allah unleashed Mu'allimi on him. Right? Mu'allim al-Imani came and finished him. I've never heard that guy again. And anyone like him. Right? Because Kitab al-Tankir is Kitab al-Usul. Now that one book, Anwar al-Kashifa. Kitab al-Tankir was against Kawthari. When you see what Mu'allimi he did, he didn't just explain the book, he explained hadith sciences, everything under the sun. Aqidah, he just put everything in that book. He never heard that guy again. Alhamdulillah. So this teaches us the beauty of our religion, but also the fact that ulama are doing the work that early scholars used to do. And the last one, Adam al-Illah. How do we know hadith is not defective? Same thing, as-sabr. We have to check by cross-referencing. Now, obviously, we cannot go through this one by one and do it ourselves because it's too much work to do and obviously advanced. But I just want to mention some benefit. Majority of the hadith which are defective because of three possible reasons or three common reasons. Three common reasons the hadith is declared ma'lul, defective. So in our time, Shaykh Muqbil and Shaykh Al-Albani, others were experts in this field. One reason hadith is defective is because the chain of transmission is an inqita', a disconnect, or adam as-sama'a, somebody didn't hear from somebody. Can't see it. You got to dig deeper. It looks like they met, but you keep going, it's not. That's the first common one. So it looks like it's up to Rasulullah, but there's a cut. Who will tell us? The experts. The second reason that there is some kind of mukhalafa. A narrator is opposing another narrator. So the hadith becomes either munkar or shadh or ziyada thiqa. Some things happen. One narrator opposes somebody else, but it's not clear to us. Only experts would know. And the last one, at-tafarrud. Somebody narrated the hadith singularly. Nobody else followed him up on it. So imagine there's only one hadith on this topic, or like one matan, with many chains, but all comes to the same person. Or maybe even one hadith and one matan. Only one guy said it. What do we do with this hadith? Some scholars, they say tafarrud, that means weak. It's singular narration. Nobody supported him. We don't know. And some say no, we got to go back to the principles. The reason why this is beneficial is that you can later on, if you advance seriously in hadith science, you can do the homework yourself. To finish, I want to talk about just some basic stuff about this methodology. The ulama will also use other things. Mustafa al-Azami, rahimahullah, in his studies in early hadith literature, page 52, studies in early hadith literature, page 52, he says that generally the four methods they would use, and most of it, like I say, is comparison and cross-referencing. Number one, they would cross-reference a hadith between different students. We just talked about that today. Sometimes they would cross-reference a statement of a single scholar against his own statement. So one scholar, they would check twice to see if he changing his view. Or maybe he told one narrator something, and then tomorrow he said something else. So you find some scholars, they do that. They just to make sure he doesn't change his narration. It's depending, because they would know, if Yahya Ma'in is coming, it's a little bit different. He's going to test you. So they maybe give the correct chain, and somebody else comes, he gives him a truncated, shorter version. So the scholars want to know, is he changing how he narrates to people? Third one, they would check the written document against the hifz. So they have a book, show me your book, and later they ask him from his memory to see if there's any difference. Or I have a book, and you narrated something, and the book is stronger than that. Or I wrote the hadith down too, and you said you heard it wrong, I heard it better than you're wrong. So imagine this. The Sahaba even used to do these methods, brothers. Sahaba are all udul, right? All trustworthy. So how did the Sahaba do this practice? If someone told them the hadith never heard, first thing we ask for, bring me somebody else who heard it. Example, Hadith Umar Abu Sa'id Khudri, about knocking 3 times and leaving without permission. Umar never heard the hadith, right? So Umar, when Abu Sa'id left, Umar told him, where did he go? After the third knock, so he told him, come. He said, yeah, this is a hadith. And he told him, where did you hear it? I never heard that hadith. Umar is a hadith scholar too, right? He says, Imam. So then he told him, about another sahabi, who confirmed it. And Umar got upset. He said, the business kept me from the hadith of Rasulullah. How come I didn't know that? So what was he doing? Cross-referencing. Giving another sahabi who agree with you. He didn't say, oh, Abu Sa'id, you're not trustworthy. No, they're all udul. We're talking now higher level brothers. We're talking about dabt. You see this? You guys following me? He's looking at his trustworthiness in memory, not his deen. That's the Sahaba, guys. Imagine. They were so careful to check the hadith. They would not accuse each other of lying. They accused each other of, okay, are you sure you heard that? Because I never heard it. And if you can prove it, for example, Abu Hurairah, they knew in the beginning, they didn't know how many hadith Abu Hurairah knows. But later, of course, if there's something you want to know, ask Abu Hurairah, he knows. Right? Because some ulama knew, defer to Abu Hurairah, he knows what we don't know. But the benefit we take from this is that the ulama used to do that. The last one, they would check a hadith based on its content. Its actual content. And I'll finish with this one. Means you read the hadith, does it make sense or doesn't make sense? Hadith actually, does it sound like hadith or not? Like the actual wording, the matan. And this again shows that the scholars were not just blindly following. So they did checking based on the aql. And how would they do that? When they hear the hadith, first they hear the chain, then they listen to the matan. If the matan doesn't sound like a hadith of Rasulullah, that's not a hadith. Right? They'll say, no, this is not a hadith. And now, can you use the rational approach? Scholars say yes, with conditions, because Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah are not like the people of innovation and got misguidance, who will use their rational intellect to determine a hadith sahih or not. We don't do that. Rather, what we do first, we check if the hadith comes from Rasulullah, is the wording itself in line with other things that Rasulullah said? Right? This is important. If it does it, yes or no? Right? If it does, we take it. If not, we double check it. As some hadith, when you hear it, you say, no, this hadith doesn't sound like a hadith of Rasulullah. An example would be, scholars say, like some hadith which have strange wordings about excessive rewards. Like they are beyond any hadith that we ever heard before. Or a hadith that talks about virtue or something that doesn't, nowhere else in the Sharia came. Or a hadith, if we hear it, it's totally against the basics of the deen. It's telling us something like khamr is halal. And we don't need to check the chain. This is fabrication. Goes against the Quran. Or for example, the narration just sounds the wordings off. Okay, the scholars also pay attention to that wording. That's what Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah in Kitab Minhaj al-Sunnah, he focused on the hadith of Shia and Ahl al-Sunnah. He says Shia, you can tell the hadith da'if by the wordings. And he brings you a criteria based on the aql. Just read the wording. It's not even proper grammar or proper sentences that the Prophet ever would say. It's too long or the wording is obscure. And scholars will say that the difference between Ahl Sunnah and Ahl Bid'ah when it comes to using the aql, we use the aql when it's allowed. So an example, there's some hadith how Rasulullah used to sleep. He used to sleep on the right side. Can anyone say, oh, it doesn't make sense to me? What do you mean it doesn't make sense? Someone saw him sleeping on the right side. So that's what scholars say. It's not aql here. This is someone saw. So some people come and say, oh, we use the aql. So what are you going to do? Rasulullah, he used to wash him like that. No, it never happened. Doesn't sound conceivable. So the people who open the door of the aql, they do this. They just deny every hadith based on shahawat. We tell them the hadith that we check for their wordings and their meanings are the hadith that go against other things of the deen. Or the wording, not reports. Because reports have to be taken from trustworthy narrators. To show you this, there's a hadith about this. Sunan Abi Dawud. Sunan Ibn Majah, it's Muqaddimah. It's also mentioned by others. It's authentic narration. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu said, إِذَا حَدَّثْتُكُمْ عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بحديث فظنوا به الذي هو أهناه وأهداه وأتقاه. That if you hear a hadith from the Rasul صلى الله عليه وسلم, or I narrate to you a hadith from him, think about it in the best way, the most guided way, and the most pious way. This is when the hadith wording, you find it confusing, or you find that the wording is maybe not befitting. You have to make sure that first we're not so done. Make sure you understood the hadith correctly. Majority of the hadith which are criticized, they're in this category. Somebody didn't understand the hadith correctly, they criticized it because he's ignorant. He didn't even know what the hadith was saying. And there's a nice book on this. One shaykh, he gathered all those erroneously interpreted hadith and said, look, the person understood it wrong and then attacked Rasulullah. He should have attacked himself. What is he listening to? And this is important. That's the first step. Another hadith, similar to it, says Rasulullah said this. So some of the scholars, they bring this narration to show, if you hear a hadith, for example, there's another hadith of Hurairah where it says, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if you hear a hadith from me and it's similar wording, then just know, right, if it's interpreted the best way, or if it doesn't sound like that, then it's a hadith I didn't say. To those effects. And the scholars see the reason why Rasulullah said this, because he knew the latter ummah would have fabrications and stuff. So the reason I'm mentioning this is that we as Muslims can actually check the wording of a hadith to the aql and other means, but that's not the primary checking of hadith. So at the end of this lesson, we see that the methodology of hadith, in summary, we have the criteria that we use, and then we have the manhaj, the methodology of jarh wa ta'deel, to figure out if a chain is muttasil, if it's authentically connected, or the scholar narrative is reliable, or if the memory of narrative is good, or there's no irregularities, etc., or defects. And each of these methodologies can be applied. Of course, this is the work of the ulama. Us, we're just getting a bare bones understanding of it. The benefit behind all of this lesson, although maybe it's some technical for some people, is that later when we talk about the criticism against the hadith literature, you have to actually know a little bit of this. And this is one of the things that we have to be careful. As Muslims, not all of us have to know these things, but we have to know that those who have doubts about hadith, this is where they're getting it from. They think, for example, the Orientalists made a big claim, so we have to figure out, how do we know our ulama are right? Now we have in-group bias, right? We're Muslims. You have to say, of course, ulama are right. They're Muslim, and that's it. They're ulama, and this guy's a kafir liar. Right? That's the easy logic, right? It probably works for most people, right? He's a kafir, who cares? Right? But that's not going to work, right? Because the person is going to bring you a book and say, look, there's a kitab, there's a mistake, and you're going to look at him like, what can I do? And what happens also is that they don't talk to people who are learning these things. Like, for example, now if we're studying this, they're not going to come talk to you. Because you might actually tell them, hey, I have somebody who refuted you, or I have another book. They're going to talk to, the internet, talk to everybody else who doesn't know. And the sad reality also, there's some Muslims, we'll talk about later, the Quraniyun, so-called Quraniyun, they are the ones who also took those down whole scale and believe that they're reliable doubts. So we will see later that it's not true. Last point is that at the end of the day, the beauty of hadith science comes down to not only its methodology and its preservation, and also its recording methods, it also the fact that all of this can be in front of us today. So if someone said, all of this you talked about today, I don't agree with it. Who has the onus or the proof of the burden of proof? The person who denies it. Because the ummah accepted it, And he needs to show where we got it wrong. And I'll show at the end of the series that some of the Orientalists who are not biased that much, right? Again, they have bias, but not that much. They confirmed what we said through their own system. As an Orientalist, he's considered Shaykh al-Hadith عندهم. He's the biggest Shaykh of there. So they can't tell us he's nobody. He's a big guy. He's your Ibn Hajar. He agreed that Hadith science is accurate. It has to be taken face value. And the reason I'm saying that, I'm going to show you later, his system is close to ours. Maybe he took from us, but he did his own style. And he found that you can say Hadith is authentic. He didn't believe all the Hadith. I'm not going to go online and say he believed Hadith 100%. But he did agree that Hadith can be verified. And he used the Musannaf Abdul as a proof to find it. This methodology works. And today is considered the most reliable Western methodology of Hadith. So I'll show that later. Just in case, again, there's somebody who says what was I supposed to present today? Right? I'm supposed to say what I'm supposed to say. No, I'm not supposed to only see that. I have to see also what the others are saying. Because at the end of the day, brothers, me and you are not necessarily the target. We're going to the masajid. We're studying the deen here. Our family members, relatives, they listen to some low life, right? Nobody or influencer who's saying crazy stuff. And when you hear him, what are you going to answer him? And I told the qissa before, we don't want to end up like that. Like Imam al-Qayyim, al-Muqaddimah of Kitab Hidayat Khiyara, the book about the Jews and Christians. He mentioned the story that one day a dhimmi, a Jew or Christian, asked a Muslim a question about deen. And he had no answer, so he gave him jawab al-kafi. Just knocked him out, right? And wallah, that's what happened. So he knocked him out because he had no answer. So Imam al-Qayyim, when he heard that, he was so shocked. He couldn't believe it. A'udhu billah, a Jew or Christian, a dhimmi too. And this is how you treat him. This is how ignorant the person Muslim was. So Ibn al-Qayyim wrote this kitab to convince him to also to bring things down, right? And so this is what's going to happen today, right? Someone talks about Hurairah, most of us, if you don't have the hadith, where are you going to take him, right? You're going to take him somewhere else. And most of the young people also know that the people who are talking about hadith sciences, they may also be citing the same sources. So if you know where they're looking, later I'll show you where to look. So if he says looking there, you can look here, inshallah. So some of the books we already see, may Allah make it easy for us. Anyone have any quick questions, inshallah, we'll take. Otherwise, I think we take a long time, inshallah. Yes? Yes. So one person, tafarrud means like it's a singular chain of transmission. Somewhere in the chain, there's only one person it goes through, or sometimes it's only one chain. And the hadith only has one chain, or as a metin, but the same narratives keep coming. So the problem we're having is that some scholars will look at this and say that if somebody is the only one who's single out in this, whatever level of singularity, it's probable that the hadith could be weak. Now the ulama earlier did not always rule a hadith which is like this to be weak, just to our benefit. Because some of the latter scholars, they tried to argue that the earlier scholars, if the hadith was like singular, they would just take it out. This is weak. And this is wrong, and it's not their principle. So the reason I'm saying that, imagine today I bring you a hadith with 10 chains. You have many different narratives. Okay, the hadith has higher probability and stronger, but I bring you one. Some may say, okay, this is authentic, it's reliable, but how do I know he didn't make a mistake? So you see how ulama were worried. They're saying that this narrative is trustworthy and reliable, but he's the only one who said it. So we're going to argue that the benefit of doubt should be given to trustworthy narratives, because sometimes one narrative is worth 1,000. Right? So, and we'll see later that this is not very common too. These are very rare to find hadiths like that. But yeah, that's what is meant by it. So either the whole chain or parts of the chain. Usually it's one narrative who's the bulk of it's coming through him. Allahu a'lam. Yes, brother. Yeah, well, ahad hadith just means it's not mutawatir. Mutawatir means that every level of the chain there's a large group of narrators. Ahad means that it's less than a large group every narrator, every section. So it could be the beginning there's lots, then it becomes singular, or less like that. But I'm talking, ifrad means this narrative is the only one who narrated hadith. Any chain you find, he's there. So what most people will say is that, well, if he's the only one there, I don't know if he's right or right. But see, the ulama were scared of lying on Rasulullah. See, this is why they were doing this. So they took the extra caution. I'm not saying that many hadith are like that, or hadith like that cannot be degraded authentic, but I'm just saying that that was a common concern. But we're going to learn, maybe another time when we study hadith more, that doesn't mean hadith is weak. It doesn't mean that. It doesn't always mean. It just means if it's like that, just check carefully, more carefully. Yes, brother. Some people criticize Shaykh Al-Albani for authenticating hadith because they didn't know what he was doing, or they misunderstood a narration, a statement of Ibn Salah, rahimahullah Shafi'i, in the beginning of his book, or in his book, Al-Muqaddimah, in Ulum al-Hadith, that he said you can't check, that contemporaries cannot check a hadith. That the contemporaries at his time Tasheeh and Tad'eef is finished. It's just for those earlier. And Ibn Salah never meant that. And the reason why someone took that, they said Ibn Salah was saying that the era of Tasheeh and Tad'eef is finished with Ilm al-Riwayah. It's finished. So whoever said before us is authentic, we take it. That's it. There's no job for the ladders. But the scholars say, no, that's not what he meant. Number one. And number two, who else authenticated hadith? Is Shaykh Al-Albani the first? He's definitely not the last. Ibn Hajar proceeded. So you never hear someone talking about Ibn Hajar. Ibn Hajar and Fath al-Bari all over the place. Hadith Hassan, Hadith Da'if. But Shaykh Al-Albani becomes so popular in authenticating, they got angry. It's Ahl Bid'ah. Today, Ahl Bid'ah have no choice. They have to say Sahih Al-Albani. What do they have? They have nothing else. They have no choice. But the reason why they're really doing it, because they don't like Shaykh Al-Albani, rahimahullah, because he was Salafi. That's what it is. And we have to know what Shaykh Al-Albani did. It's not just the hadith he authenticated, the aqeedah. Right? He brought the Bid'ah Asani, he brought the aqeedah and the fiqh. So really a lot of people, I don't think even know what he was doing. Everyone should read the biography of Shaykh Al-Albani and his hadith sciences, to study it, to figure out what appreciation the man was doing for our time. Some scholars couldn't believe he existed in our time period. Because what he was trying to do, how he did it, he even surpassed Ibn Hajar, rahimahullah, in terms of how he authenticated hadith, the level of authentication, like the rigor that he went through. But I believe most people, when they tell you this, they heard from certain books, like a book called Al-Albani and His Friends. Astaghfirullah. Look at the title of the book. A'udhu billah. Al-Albani and His Friends. Right? Yeah. So this is not a book we should be reading. If someone reading that book, throw it out. Right? You know who wrote that, right? These are the Naqshbandis. Right? But then we ask them, we tell them, can you show us a hadith sahih? And here's the irony, brothers and sisters. They say Shaykh Al-Albani, we can hadith Bukhari Muslim. Their own shaykh, we can hadith Bukhari Muslim. Hadith al-Jariyah, Allah subhanahu being above the heavens, they say hadith da'if. Ahmed al-Ghumari says hadith da'if. La hawla quwwata billah. No one in the ummah said da'if for him. No one in the whole ummah agreed hadith da'if. He came and said da'if. With which chain? He's a hadith scholar. He just doesn't go with our aqidah. And then they're going to turn around and say, so this is very interesting to know that. Because the problem I think is happening is that Shaykh Al-Albani became easy for people to say that. But alhamdulillah, a lot of people are coming defending him, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done explaining it. I don't want to mention more detail because it's just we know better, alhamdulillah. But may Allah make it easy for people to understand his position, not only him, but all the ulama in our time. You had a question, brother? Yes. In our time, the ulama ilal, there are ulama, many of them, but scholars, you see, like in this question, obviously left to the Ahlul Ilm. I cannot tell you a list. Shaykh Al-Albani, Shaykh Muqbil are famous amongst them. And scholars, they also mention others, right? But the scholars, they say that you have to be mindful that in our time, there are some people who their methodology of hadith checking is wrong. And so because of this, they're becoming popular as hadith checkers, but their checking is not correct. So scholars that we know who are experts in hadith, many of them are experts. Shaykh Muqbil, Shaykh Al-Albani, for example, and others, Shaykh Al-Abad, Shaykh Ethiopia, others who are known hadith. But there's so many others. But there's some group of people today who their methodology is not correct. And they focus a lot on the ilal and they do it wrong. And obviously it's a different topic. So, but I'm not the person to tell you the names. I'm not a hadith myself or muhaddith, so I can't tell you. Right? But those big names we know. But the ulama, they do know. There are people. Yes, last one, inshallah. The hadith is not fabricated. The hadith is difference of opinion of authenticity. But you're right, some of the ulama believe it's defective, the hadith. Yeah. The form, exactly. The form of the hadith seems so far away from the way, the form of the salah, yes. So that's one of the reasons. That's an example, yes. But the ulama, they differed on that hadith, and some proved that it's authentic, despite the fact that it has a lot of uniqueness. Because again, how do we know hadith is ma'lul? We have to check what the earlier scholar said. But also say that we're also going to check the hadith itself to see that because the chain of transmission is still there, right? You can still check. So there is a difference of opinion. But that's an example of some who said is ma'lul. So Shaykh al-Islam said, for example, look at the form of the salah. It's too off. But the other group replied, Abdul Mubarak, he accepted the hadith. And Ibn Mubarak is the ulama, one of the ulama of hadith, right? And ilal. So it's a good example though, you could say that. Whereas the hadith is mawdu' is one that has nothing to go, right? So ilal means it meets most of the conditions, 4 out of 5 maybe. But then something of the 4 or 5 is not there, but we can't see it. Shaykh Al-Muqbil has an excellent book on that to show you like how some examples of that if someone wants to see it. Shall we end with this much? If anyone has any other questions, they can ask after. Subhanak bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa ant astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.